Welcome, Maria. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much, Bola, for having me on your podcast. I couldn't be more excited.
It's awesome. I'm excited as well. I'm a student of leadership, and I'm always excited to hear from leaders like you as they share their insights. Before we dive into it, can you share your journey into leadership and how you started advising CEOs? What led to that?
Yeah, it was actually the lack of leadership that really brought me into leadership. I was working at a few American companies in corporate America, particularly in their sales teams, and selling technology enterprise solutions, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology. And I literally felt like something was truly missing. There was something that felt even broken. And there was not the sense of truly selling for the well-being of communities or for people or even the well-being of our planet or making this world a better place. And I think a lot of your listeners might know what I'm talking about. It's just sales for sales, just for the numbers, get the next numbers in for the quota for the quarter. And if you were last, then you would be fired. And it was hard to really drive sales from bringing value to my clients on a long-term perspective. So I needed a break and actually quit when I was on top of my game, and because of those reasons, and decided to move to Cameroon, take a break for 6 months, and most of that time was spent working with the rehabilitation of chimpanzees and the gorillas in the Congo Basin rainforest, which was amazing. And there, surprisingly, I was not there for this reason, but I started observing a very different type of leadership that I thought, wow, if we could just get this lead type of leadership into corporate America or the Western world, what would it bring? And I just could not let it go. And so when I came back to United States, and I was weighing if I should go back to Europe or United States at the time, but decided to come back to United States, I thought, wow, to be a leadership consultant will really be fun and see if we can get this into corporate America. So here I am.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, you wrote a book, The Leadership We Need. Can you give us the takeaway from your book? What is the leadership we need? Because the way you framed it, it sounded like there is some kind of urgency in terms of getting the leadership that we really need. So, tell us about that.
Yeah, what is clear to me is that our current leadership and our current leaders, the leaders of today, are simply not the leaders of tomorrow. We are not on a very good planetary humanitarian trajectory. This is not Maria's opinion. This is expert opinion. And we should take it very, very seriously because we are not on a good trajectory for our overall well-being, neither for our very survival. For example, just to give you one quick example, today, a newborn baby in the United States of America is born with over 200 chemicals, 287 in most studies, chemicals in their core blood day one. Half of those are known directly to cause cancer. This is not a success. We can do so much better than this. And I think we can all agree, no matter where you're on the political spectrum, no matter where you live in the world, this is not humanity being led at its best. And that's what this book is about. It's about changing the type of leadership mindset and start bringing in leaders and vote for leaders that actually do care for our overall well-being and are looking out for our very survival. Currently, it's not happening. It's not happening in nations. It's not happening in businesses. And we cannot no longer celebrate and look up to leaders that are domineering. The loudest voice, the most dominating personality is no longer um, the type of leader we need to go for. We are no longer fighting barbarians at the gate. And I repeat that because those are still the leaders we vote in and also bring up to the top of organizations. We are no longer fighting barbarians at the gate. Possibly those leaders were what we needed 10,000 years ago. And unfortunately, we have not evolved to look at leaders in a different way. We don't need the loudest, we don't need the most dominant, the A types anymore. We actually need leaders that are not just for show, but are actually capable and qualified to lead and solve our current most pressing issues. We are in a polycrisis. By the experts, you can look at our trajectory. As I mentioned, you can look at what the experts at Oxford are saying. And it's not good. And we should take this seriously. And we just need a different mindset. So the mindset that I propose in my book and that I hope that people are going to vote for and bring into the top of organizations
Yeah.
is one that is based on three things. Inclusiveness.
Mm-hmm.
This is not because it's the right thing to do. This is because we need to bring in experts and the smarts from the people around us. It starts with having a full representation of humanity, leading humanity for the first time in human history, I'm sad to say. We have been led by a small subset of humanity, men of very masculine qualities. And it's just no longer cutting it. And that's number one. Number two, we need leaders that can see the long-term perspective and bring in and weigh the short term with the long term. That means thinking beyond the organizations, thinking beyond their nations, and really start building bridges to unite humanity, unite nations, unite people, connect with our environment, connect with nature, and that we're all connected. Currently, we have leaders that seem to think we're separate from nature. I mean, this is biology one-on-one. They lead from that perspective. We need to understand we're a part of nature. That's the only way forward if we are to have a bright future. And then the third part is what I called the balance between the masculine and the feminine. You can also call it the balance between linear and non-linear thinking. So if you think about leadership as a pyramid, it needs both, right? And that's where you're going to have the peak performance. You can see it in the background there, peak performance. So
Yeah.
that would be where we show up as leader authentically of
Mm-hmm.
who we truly are and have that balance between both masculine leadership qualities and feminine leadership qualities, where we have the power and the human wisdom in perfect balance. Currently, because of the monopolized leadership culture that we've had for the last 10,000 years, it's truly non-existent to have that balance. But yet, it's from there we will find our leaders of tomorrow and the leaders that are going to bring on a bright future for all of us.
Okay, so you spoke a lot right there, and I think you are looking at leadership from ESG perspective, that's environmental, social, and governance, which I do agree with that we need to do something in order to elevate humankind from that standpoint. But recently, I was having a conversation with a friend, and we were talking about the impact that we can make as individuals. And when you are bringing all this up, I want to ask you how you've talked about the what. Now let's understand the how. How do you think we can propagate this message? I believe podcast is one of these ways because we are going to share this. People are going to listen, and of course, they will learn from what we are talking about. But how else do you think we can send this message out there so that more people will gain awareness that we need these kind of leaders to lead us into the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Vola, and I so agree. And it's actually quite simple. We don't need to overcomplicate. It starts with yourself. It starts with having your self-awareness of where you show up as a leader, and are you truly being the leader that is the most effective? And are you leading from a balance and an effective, harmonious balance between the masculine and the feminine yourself? And actually, in the book, The Leadership We Need, I do have specific reflection questions to get that quick assessment, if you will. And I also have the tools of knowing your strengths, where you show up as a leader, also your possible blind spots, as well as what your values and what your purpose are. And that's a great place to start. How that will look like in an organization is that once you have that fully expressed in yourself and understood, you can bring it into the organization. You can bring it into your team. And then you can just start showing up with more of who you truly are. Sometimes it's hard to lead from that because we're still in a culture that overly overvaluing the masculine, if you will. So most likely we'll have to go a little bit masculine to even get a seat at the table. That's just the environment, and we're not going to change that very quickly. But once you're at the table, you can start bringing out that more of the feminine wisdom, the non-linear. And I'm not talking just about women, I'm talking about in men and women. To start creating a leadership environment that is accepting them more feminine, because in that mindset and in that environment and in that safe space is truly where we're going to find the right questions being asked,
Mhm.
and the right people are going to start to surface, who are not scared of holding back or not scared of making the leader look bad in any way, but where the leader is comfortable enough to say, I might not be the smartest person in the room, but let's see who else we can listen to here and make sure everybody feels valued. So that is just, start with yourself and then take it from there.
No, that is good. And I know you've talked about linear and non-linear, masculine and feminine. So I want to ask you, and I'm thinking this is all about empathy. What role does empathy play in effective leadership?
It's so crucial because of many reasons. I would say the number one reason, ironically, going back to the individual, is that if you don't have the luxury and don't operate in an environment that accepts the empathy, and you have a lot of empathy and you cannot show up that way, you're going to burn yourself out. Uh, it's going to be a very short-term career for you. Um, so you need to think about the long term. How can you be effective long term, and how can you truly show up and not trying to be something you're not? So it's very important to kind of ask some, again, the reflective questions that I mentioned, and maybe get into your strengths finder. There is a Barrett value assessment that is great as well, to see how much of that empathy comes to you naturally. And then I think empathy is a part of that nonlinear, right? I'm a little reluctant to call it feminine because it might turn a lot of people off, but it's that nonlinear wisdom that we have all within us. And once you have the empathy, what's nice with that, Bola, is that you can truly start meeting people where they're at. And you can turn it up and you can turn it down, depending on the situation, who's in the room, and what you need to get done. But I think it's crucial for your own sustainability to last, to not shy away from it. It's truly should be celebrated. And currently, we're at that tipping point where, or intersection where people are reluctant to bring it out, but it's truly what we need.
So when we look at today's environment and we consider leadership, whether it's in corporate organization or governmental entities, obviously there are some, I'll say, a very big gap in terms of the leadership we need and the leadership we are currently getting. In your view, what are some, I'll call it, mistakes or some shortfall that you are seeing in the leaders that we are having today, whether it's in taking all this bold initiative to go after, to preserve our environment, for example. What are those mistakes that you are seeing?
I think one of the biggest mistake, and I've done it myself, so I can speak from my own experience, is that we think that we have to be the smartest person in the room. We think that we need to have all the answers and not, if not, people will not follow us. We also see that on the world stage. We see that in leaders all over the place where, and they can't handle when they're not, right? They fall apart. And they get really mad at people that take them down or ask questions when we actually need to do exactly the opposite. The smartest leaders that I work with are the leaders that understand that the smarts comes from their teams and how smart they make the people around them be able or allow them to be and develop that smarts that are around them and constantly look for diversity of thought. They're basically looking for people not to be yes men. And I call them yes men because that's what history and where we currently still are at. It's a man on the top with a yes man.
Yeah.
We need to break that down. We can no longer perform with that kind of energy and that kind of mindset. And I also put it on the followers because we cannot, as followers, allow a yes man kind of personality on top, whether it's a woman or a man, um, because the consequences are just too great at this point in our history. And we need to meet this moment and break that up. So that is, to go back to your question, the biggest mistake a leader can do at this time, whether it's an organization or a nation.
Okay, no, that's good. Now it will take us to the what I call influence that we can have over others. You said change start with us. You said followers should also be proactive in terms of selecting the right leaders. But maybe let's think about organization today. How can someone build influence without any formal leadership title, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think at this point and what we've seen through history, so much leadership has been influence, right? But today you need to have influence and you need to have these other capabilities. So you need to have the influence capabilities being, I would say, masculine, but some people might want to argue that. Um, to get the troops aligned, if you will. But you also need to bring in the feminine of the wisdom. So it's a broader set of skills that are required in leadership. And the wider, the more tools you have available to you, the more successful you will be, not only to meet this moment, but also to drive that influence because you can connect with people at different levels. You can connect with some people more so in the strategic thinking, if you will, if you're talking to some experts in some areas. You can talk to the people that are about relationships, and if you can bring out that empathy in you. You can talk to the other influencers and get them excited if you have a little bit maybe more of that command. So we need that as well as, the execution of getting things done. Today's leaders cannot just rely on the influencing domain alone, if you will. We need leaders that actually have the capability and skills to have it all. And if they don't, they need to have people in their leadership team and around them to partner with them to complement those sides because we need all of those. And not a single one of those domains should, like a influence, should be overvalued. That's the danger. We really need a good balance between the dominant, or I'm sorry, the influencing, the strategic thinking, the relationship building, and the execution.
I like that. So now let's try to narrow it down and focus on women this time around. What advice do you have for women that are aiming for executive leadership roles in corporate organizations? How can they get there?
Yeah. Um, I would say that women has never been more important to leadership than now. We can no longer have half of humanity, women, on the sideline. We need women, minorities, and most importantly, the indigenous population in leadership more than ever. How do they get in and how do they stay on top? They need to start with have full self-awareness of what their capabilities, what their skills are, what drives them, what are their strengths, what are their values, what purpose do they have. Again, I have exercises around this in my book for those who are interested in the leadership we need. Um, the one thing we can't change is the environment we're currently in. It is a masculine environment, whether we agree with it or not. And you know how I feel about it. It is what it is. So a woman is going to have to go more masculine to get in. That doesn't mean she has to change who she is. It just means here, rely on the masculine, right? Now, once you're in, and to prevent burnout, you need that healthy balance, just like you need a healthy diet. You need the masculine and the feminine, right? To be at that peak, the PP, as I call it, the peak performance. So for a woman, I think it's even more important to make sure that she doesn't feel like she has to be somebody she's not. She might have to feel that getting in. I often compare it. Here's an example of you go into an interview for a high stake position. You're not going to show up with your comfortable who you are kind of clothes. You're going to dress for the occasion, just like you're going to bring out the masculine qualities in you for the occasion and for that person in the room and for that interview and for that leadership team meeting. That doesn't mean that slowly but surely you can start bringing out more of that feminine. And I couldn't think of anything more important considering where we're at to bring that out, because that's truly what it's needed, is that feminine nonlinear wisdom, woman or man, but let's focus on the women now. And I do think it comes more naturally for the women. I just hope that they also realize to be masculine and try to pretend you're something that you're not is not going to lead to a sustainable success. It's going to be very short-term lived.
Okay,
So
so
that's my advice.
no, I like that. So, this episode is going to come out in audio as well as in video. So, right behind you, I can see a board to those that will be watching. And on your board, you have Leadership RSP. Can you tell us about RSP? What does that
Yeah, so that just means, as you can see there, we need a full representation of humanity,
mean?
being humanity.
Uh-huh.
We need system thinking. That means belonging and connection with nature, with humanity, with nature, with animals. I mean, we need that long-term perspective to really be a place of well-being and make decisions from there. And then we need the peak performance that we just talked about, the masculine and the feminine, to really be performing at our peak. Peak performance is having that balance, whether you're man or woman, the linear with the nonlinear, to make it sustainable. So those are the three things. So representation, system thinking, and peak performance. With that, our future will be bright, but it will take a change in our mindset. And anyone listening out there, I want you to do the self work and figure out where you're at and if you're cut out for leadership, because that is what's needed. And it comes from that place of positive intent, which that comes about. It's not about that leader anymore and, power play or what the next challenge. You really need to think bigger. So
All right, that is good. So finally, Maria, what career advice would you give my listeners that is actionable? Maybe one thing that you want them to do, maybe this week, this month, or for the rest of this year. Can you go and tell us?
I would suggest taking StrengthsFinder and a StrengthsFinder assessment.
Okay.
It's available online. It's a great place to start. 90% of corporate America leadership team has done that assessment on their executives. It's something that you can use in the interview process, talk about your strengths, also possibly blind spots, who you need to partner with, what type of people to prevent them becoming weaknesses, just so you have a good set of self-awareness around that. That would be a great place to start. I can go on and on where to take it next, but of course you can also partner with a StrengthsFinder coach. Then you can go into values and purpose, but that might be step 2 and 3. So But
Oh,
StrengthsFinder, I would highly, highly recommend.
no, we
It's
love
it's not expensive either. I think it's $20 or 25 or
it.
yeah, to
Okay.
get your top five.
So there you have it, listeners. Go take the Strength Finder so that you can discover your strengths. Maria, where can my listeners find your book and how can they connect with you so that they can continue to follow you on this journey?
Yeah, please connect with me over LinkedIn. And the book can be found on Amazon, The Leadership We Need, Maria Brink with a CK. And there you have me.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us on the Career Evangelist Podcast today. It's been an awesome time with you learning about leadership, the leadership we need. Thank you for sharing your insight, Maria. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Bola. I so appreciate it. Thank you.